Hi there, welcome to this episode of the Business Connectors. Michael Griffiths with you here with Andy Levstek from Australian Credit and Finance. I was worried of the whole time, Andy, I'd get your surname correct, but I think we've come pretty close. So
You've come on the money.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us on this episode. Really excited to be able to bring Andy from Australian Credit and Finance here to be able to talk about business finance, where the banks are at, where credit and finance is generally at this point in time, and how businesses might be able to access some of that. If you're listening going, well, I wouldn't mind, I'm having trouble right now through the bank manager that I normally deal with, well, hopefully Andy might be able to share some insights and tips on that to be able to solve some of your problems. But before we get into that, Andy, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you actually got to be part of Australian Credit and Finance.
Sure. Well, initially I started my career off leaving high school and studying to be an accountant. I'd spent my time at McDonald's and really built a career up in franchising. And for many years I worked for companies like McDonald's, had a Pizza Haven franchise in my early 20s. And then built my career back in the finance sector, working with models such as Aussie, helping set up the distribution model there for franchising, estate manager and mortgage choice for a long time. And then from that progressed my career and eventually got to the point where I wanted to get out on my own and do my own thing.
Great, fantastic. So Australian Credit and Finance, tell us a little bit more about that, what it does, how you help people, who are the sorts of people you help?
Sure. Well, really interesting. When I went out there and I wanted to start up and work with a model, given it my background and my long time and longevity in the third party spaces, which is what we call it, I really went and looked at models that not only were going to be supportive to myself, but also supportive to my customers. And that was really important to me. So when I went out there and looked at Australian Credit and Finance, we looked at two things. One, how we have a continuing ongoing support structure for our customers, but also how we help them through the journey of getting the home loan across or getting a loan done. And they, to me, were looking as cutting edge in regards to where the industry was heading. And it was really important for me. Our niche service and where we go is really based around re-educating people on how to get the best out of their home loan. Our philosophy isn't about just getting the one lender, it's about the 30 lenders that we have on our panel. It's about understanding how we can give you the best product continually and, not just looking at as a finance deal as a one-off transaction, but looking as a finance deal as an ongoing transaction to make sure you're continually reviewing, continually looking at what's out in the marketplace and getting the best thing for your business. Because it's amazing how many people just sit and forget and then realise that they've given away 30, 40, 50, 70, $100,000 over the term of the loan, which is just crazy in today's day and age.
Yeah, so true. Especially when there's so much choice out there at this point in time, and really that end user should be in control of the game. But for most of them, they're not, because they don't understand how to be.
Exactly right. And that's really where we come in. And that's part of our role. And part of my customer service to all of my customers is that I review them every 3 years. We sit down, we come back, we have a look at where we are in the marketplace, we look where the marketplace has taken us, and we look at what's a better structure for them at the end of the day. And that's important. And perhaps, these days people need to remember that 49% of transactions are done with mortgage brokers. And, most mortgage brokers are people like myself who have been in the industry for a very, very long time and are quite knowledgeable in comparison to, unfortunately, dealing with the one banker or lender who is just wanting you to keep you at those same three products when I'm putting you across maybe 200 or 300.
Yeah, so true. And as our listeners generally know, I invest very heavily in property. Therefore, I understand and understood very early on, even though Dad was with CBA Bank at the very top there and wanted me to stay with CBA Bank, that bank manager had a job.
Yep.
Their job was to make the bank money, to
Absolutely.
make the shareholders money. And sometimes that means that you're not actually the person being looked after.
And more in particular today, when you look at a lot of banks that I, as a broker, have an opportunity to get in front of, a lot of these banks you won't be able to actually talk to unless you went through a broker. Because of structure these days, bricks and mortar aren't really a requirement these days. And people have to ask themselves, when was the last time you went into a bank? these days with online banking, with the internet, with doing all the stuff that you can via a broker, you actually have an opportunity to get in front of a lot more opportunities with lenders that you just won't do if you went through the normal bricks and mortar, and are a lot more competitive in some aspects.
Great. So most of our listeners are business owners here. So what are you seeing right now in that space in terms of lending? What are banks looking at for businesses to lend them money? Any sort of insights that our business owners can learn from?
Look, it comes back to having a chat with someone like myself. I mean, the key to the matter is that with over 30 lenders on my panel, I have a really good understanding of what lenders have an appetite for what types of business products. And that's really the challenge for a lot of business owners. As you know, you could walk into a certain branch, you need a certain type of business transaction, and it's not there for you. Yet with myself, I right now know, if as an example, for commercial leasing, certain lenders have got enough funds in the system, and someone like an ING is ready to go. They're looking for that type of product, where other lenders maybe aren't. So it really comes down to their appetite, and that's really the key thing that I look at is to understand where the appetite is coming from the lenders. The second thing is, most business owners, and as you would all be aware, keep your finances up to date. Make sure that you've got everything current. Don't go looking at the next idea and then realising you haven't done your tax returns, you haven't got all your paperwork up to date, because all of a sudden you've left yourself well behind the 8 ball, and you're 4 or 5 months down the track before you can actually start communication with a lender. And keep it honest, and make sure you're doing the right thing by yourself, because you don't want to be looking at a second-tier lender to a major lender, because you maybe haven't got your finances correctly in order.
Yeah, great. Which sort of leads us into what are some of the tips that you could give to business owners, and you've just given some great ones there. If there was one thing that business owners who are about to go looking for business finance, what's the one thing they need to make sure they've got in order first before they even start the process?
Just be prepared. Sit down with someone like myself. Understand what you need to do before you approach the lender, and prepare and create I always say create the journey. So that's the journey that we want to create to get to that point, so we can actually have the transaction in place. And sometimes that means going back and reviewing your current situation and addressing some things within your personal finances, getting them in order, and then getting ready for that next stage.
Yeah, fantastic. Certainly, the more up-to-date and current you are, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to impress the person who needs to give you money. And I'm certainly a big believer that if you need some sort of finance, someone's going to give it to you. You've just got to find who that person is, and you've got to help yourself by ensuring all your ducks are in a row to begin with.
Absolutely.
To make it easier for them to give you money.
Spot on. And time is of the essence as well. When I think some of the challenges that a lot of people do is that we're so busy with our businesses that when we do speak to a bank and the bank is asking for more information, we wait 2 or 3 days before we give that information back, and then the bank takes another 2 or 3 days. So what could have been a 1 week transaction in closing the deal can eventually become a 2-month transaction, and the bank walks away because they find it very difficult.
Great.
So it's really, really important that once you get into that communication line with the lender and your broker, that time is of the essence, and urgency is required.
Yeah, brilliant. Fantastic. So I know, Andy, you get around to lots of different networking events. You've got a great network behind you.
Yes.
You came to one of ours recently, and certainly I could see very clearly that you've done that before. We've got a lot of new listeners, a lot of new business owners that might not have got out to networking events. Sure. What's some tips or advice that you could give them about getting out and growing their network?
Look, for me, it's about consistency, and there's a couple of points here. Consistency is the key. Don't, as much as I'd like to, walk into a room and everyone says, "Oh my God, Andy's arrived." It doesn't happen every day. And in my mind, I wish it would, but it doesn't. The reality of it is that you need to be consistent. You need to introduce yourself. You need to map out a format in regards to who you're targeting to build your network with. and then, talk about the longevity of it. If you're coming in once a month and catching up with someone and getting to know someone over a period of 12 months, they're going to realise you're around for a long time. If you just walk in the once and you walk away, it's never going to be a network anyway. So consistency is one. The second thing is, do business with the people that you like.
Yeah, good.
That to me is just so important. And if you like them, you can enjoy their company. You can catch up for a bit of a bite to eat, maybe a beer once in a while, to have a drink with people. That's a fantastic way to do business. And thirdly, find people who want to refer. That's essential. There's so many people who want to network, and yet they ask, well, what's in it for me? Rather than asking yourself, what's in it for me, what can I do to give you a referral? And if you change the way you think, your business will evolve. And I think if you concentrate on those three things, you quickly start to understand that you don't need 100 people. You need a good 4 or 5, 6 people from various sectors that really help each other. And the other thing that I always look for is start to look outside the square sometimes. Whilst I don't get to a hairdresser that often, look at the local cafe, look at the local pub, for example, or maybe just the local solicitor or the local council, somewhere where think about the walk that you take every day and think of your surroundings, and you'd be surprised how many people will refer to you that are outside of your normal realms of direct contact. So they're really the things that I look for. And when I say the walk you walk, I always think of John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever, the opening scene with a can of Coke and a can of paint in his hand. And it's okay to have a bit of a strut when you do network, because the thing I always say is this: better to be noticed than not to be noticed at all.
True.
And I think that's important. So ask yourself the question when you network: do people know who you are? And if they don't, what can you do to change it?
Yeah, lovely. Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us today. That's been some great advice there, and certainly if you're looking to be able to get some business finance, it is creditandfinance.com.au.
Australian Credit and Finance.
AustralianCreditandfinance.com.au, where you'll Andy. You'll also be able to find him on LinkedIn, so please connect with him also, because Andy's got a great network. He'll be more than happy to be able to share that with you at the same time. Otherwise, have a fantastic rest of the week, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.